everybody, it's Jen and welcome to Caketastic Cakes, and today I'm going to show you how I made this cowboy themed graduation cake. And what I did was I remade a Sonic the Hedgehog cake into this cake, so I'm going to show you a little bit of that, but basically, yeah, how easy it is to put together a cowboy themed cake. So here's my Sonic cake. It was super cute. It was for the anniversary of Sonic the Hedgehog, the video game's release, and I loved it. But, yep, it's got to go. So I just pick all the pieces off, and then I'm going to clean up the icing and begin. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make the belt buckles. So I start with gum paste. I am going to use gum paste for these decorations for the most part. I'll tell you if I don't, but this is gum paste, and I cut out the circle as you saw. I left it kind of thick, but then I pulled it into an oval shape and flattened around the edges. So kind of think of it like a partially melted bar of soap or something like that. I rolled out some more gum paste nice and thin using my fondant paddle. And I'm just gonna make some like little letter S's basically. Like making a belt buckle, like a cowboy themed belt buckle, is really pretty simple. Just if you can make S's, you can make it look like a cowboy belt buckle. I've got 4 S's, as you can see on each side. I do this little mustache looking curly thing for the top and the bottom, and that's it. In the middle, I'm going to put the initial of the kid's birthday, who it was. And yeah, if you do make a letter, just try to keep it more blocky, you know, not real flowy and pretty necessarily. But I stuck it in the center. I have some silver edible spray. I picked this up at Walmart, I believe it was, nice and cheap. Or, excuse me, more affordable than some of the other ones out there. And just put it aside, let it dry, that's it. And all you have to do is let the silver dry. You don't even have to let the gum paste set because you're going to stick it on the side of the cake. Now, this is some beige gum paste that I've already cut out in the shape of my boots and hat. I found a picture online, I printed it out to the size I wanted, and I'm just using it as a template. And so because I don't have a color printer, it becomes a little bit more difficult, but the idea is sound. I've got the hat, and I've got the dark part of the boots, and then I'm going to have the dark part of the pattern on the boots, the dark leather that makes the jaggedy kind of pattern. So I'm using a darker gum paste, or brown gum paste, outlining everything just like I did before. And also, if you've noticed on the bottom cake, the bottom tier, I've got a couple cowboy hats. It's the same hat. I just made 2 more of them, and I just didn't show it because it was kind of boring, and you don't need to see the same thing 1,000 times. All right, so I've got the dark brown for the boots. I've got the dark brown for the hat. I just cut up my template, try to do the best I can to make the pattern of it all jaggedy and zigzaggedy. Of course, you don't have to do this pattern, do whatever you want, but this is just what I did. And stick it in place. I use my template just like that, as you can see, to match up where the pattern should go when it sits on it to make it look as best as possible. This is, like I said, gum paste, not fondant, because in this situation I want it to stand up, so I need it to dry. I need it to hold its shape. If I use fondant here, it would flop over, it wouldn't work, especially because it's a flat decoration standing, not a 3D one. Now I'm using a little bit of water to connect everything here. I've got some black gum paste that I rolled nice and thin, and I'm just doing some outlining. It'll help it all stand out better, helps make it look a little more sharp, a little more Yee-Haw and razzy-dazzy, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. So yes, I outlined the hat a bit. I'm separating the boots, and I'm using a little bit thicker, flatter pieces for the soles of the shoes. And now I've got a brown edible food coloring marker, and I'm drawing the seams on everything, as well as putting some marks where shadowing is going to be, or where I'm going to have shading. I'm outlining my little zigzag pattern a bit. You can see the seams that I put on the hat as well there, I think, if you look close enough. But even just by outlining it in some dark brown, it really makes it start to stand out. Again, I'm going to put some creases on the top of the boots, like you'd expect to see in some more well-worn shoes. I'm putting, and now I've got a little bit of brown food coloring and some water, and I'm going over the places where I did some shading, and I'm just kind of filling it in. So I'm just, again, giving it a little more color, giving it a little more depth. It just helps it come to life a little bit better, and it just looks a little nicer, I think. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. And I'm going around the outside edges, Going to do the toes, anywhere that you might think a little shadowing or maybe a little dirtiness would be. That's where you're going to add it. And when you're happy with it, you just move on. Put it aside, let it dry. All right, now this is fondant here. This is going to be covering that blue tiered cake you can see in the corner there of the screen. I took some copper colored food coloring as well as some beige and brown and just kind of mixed it all into one lump of fondant and twisted it a whole lot, but I didn't thoroughly incorporate it, so now it's marbled, as you can see. This is just to give it more of an organic look, I guess, for bark, to make it look more like wood. I'm using my knife blade just to put marks in it. I did a bunch of straight up and down ones. I did some curvy ones. I'm doing some chop, chop, chop ones. Really, it's tree bark. You can't go too rough with wood, is really where we're at here. I square it off, well enough that it's going to stand on the cake or go against the side of the cake, so I'm not worried about the top. I just need the bottom and the sides to be straight enough that I can, have it flush along the bottom of the cake like that, because I was having a little problem with that. And the sides are going to have to match up as well. And there goes my doggy. Okay, so yes, I'm going to trim off the extra on the top. And I did have this cake in the refrigerator, so the icing is nice and firm. It's not really sticking to my fondant, so I will be reusing some of that was just flopped over the top. And I'm going back with my little scissors. There goes my son. I do this in my own house. Could you tell? I'm not a professional here. I do this, trying to help other people. So yeah, make some more wood panels. I had roughed up the edge there of the top of the pieces to make it look a little more like, weathered pieces of wood sticking up around the top. And it keeps it from being too long so it doesn't like flop over and look lousy. But again, wherever you have the big heavy marks in your wood, do a little snip at the top. Make your little plank levels uneven. It just gives it a little bit more of a natural look. This is some extra that I've got going here, and I'm making a ring around the top of the cake. I'm not worried about the center because the top tier is going to sit there, so that's not my problem. And I'm just worried about covering the outside. I still want it to look more tree stumpy, I guess, and look nice. So yeah. I roughed it up again with my knife to make some circles, this time not just lines. And I'm going over everything with some black and some brown food coloring mixed with water. It will get into the cracks, it'll get into the lines that you created, and it just makes it look nicer. It just, looks a little sharper rather than your plain one-dimensional kind of cake. And also don't worry about going too heavy with it because you really can't go too heavy. It's wood. All right, now my top tier is just a 6-inch tier. The bottom was an 8-inch. And I had covered it in white fondant. And now I'm going to add my belt buckle. The silver has dried, so I can handle it pretty comfortably. You still don't want to go crazy on it because you can smudge it or smear it off. And I stuck it with a little bit of water right into the center of my cake. I've got some more of the copper color here. This, again, is fondant. And I'm rolling out a nice thick strip. And I cut a circle edge on the one end. I'm wrapping it around, and this is going to become a belt. So I've got my other side. I mark where it curves around using my circle cutter, cut it off, and this is attached with a little bit of water. I don't know if I showed it or not. I don't know if I'm coming or going sometimes these days. But anyway, yes. So with the circle cut edge, it just matches right up to the belt buckle. Now, in order to make the holes, I just got a straw from my local coffee shop. And it's clean, I never used it, and I'm just punching some holes into the fondant, just right in the center. I went all around the cake. It was, just circles. I'm just punching and then carefully picking them out. Make sure if you do decide to do this technique with the fondant on top, the white fondant, that you don't go all the way through, that you just cut through your belt. I'm using the seam tool there to make 2 seams on the top and bottom of the belt, even though I rushed through that part. Okay, now I'm adding some wooden dowels to the bottom cake. These are food grade. They're made from bamboo, I believe. That one went flying off the table. And then I'm going to stack up my cakes. Now that I have them stacked, it's time to make them a little more festive. I've got some golden yellow, or maybe it was marigold. I don't quite remember, but I did it lightly. I think I mixed it with ivory, actually. This is fondant again. I mixed it up, made it all one solid color, and I rolled it out, as you saw, really, really long. And now I'm folding it in half and twisting it, and I'm trying to make my twists as evenly spaced and sized as possible. It can be a challenge, not gonna lie, but you know, do the best you can. And this is going to become my rope border. So again, I just twist it all up as evenly as I can, make it as long as I can, so that way I don't have to have cuts or breaks in my rope. And then I'm gonna wrap it around the cake. So yes, it takes a little time. This cake weighs a lot by the time you're done with it, with all the fondant and everything else. But when you wrap it around, it has a really cool look. I was very happy with this. There's one of those seams I was hoping to avoid, but the bottom one was a little bit wider than my counter space and my twisting skills could account for. I've got a little bit extra, so I figured why not give it like a little twist in it, just to make a little knot in the rope or something, just because it looks cool. So yeah, I stuck my 2 hats on the bottom. I placed my cowboy hat on the top. It's being held up with a lollipop stick. I just pressed it with some fresh gum paste into the back, while after the hat and boots dried, I added a little fresh gum paste to the back and pressed the lollipop stick into it, let that dry, stick it in, add your details, and yeah, there you go. There's your cowboy cake. So yeah, it's not hard to do. It really isn't. You just need a couple of templates and you're good. So yeah, I hope you found this video helpful. Please like and subscribe because it helps me out as well. I've got a ton of other videos out there, so be sure to take a look. And as always, thanks for watching Caketastic Cakes.